full programs and play more with that, right? And functions and stuff like that. We have talked about variables, we have talked about functions, right? Do you have any questions on any of those things? No, you know how to declare variables, you know how to declare functions, you know how to use operators on variables and values to create new values, right? You know all that stuff. Cool. Yes?
When we write the public static, for example, int and sum or add or whatever, int
The return type.
Yeah, it's Boolean, and int if they are I forgot the name.
Primitives?
Variable.
No. Int is a return type. It's not a variable, just saying the kind of things that I give you back are int. In that case. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But after int and Boolean or whatever, you have sum, add, or
whatever name you want.
So they are not, they are just names. They are not.
They are just names, yes. And they use the same rules as a variable. So basically, you cannot start with a digit. You can use letters and digits and underscore and dollar sign. And you cannot start with a digit. And capitalization is important, so uppercase is different than lowercase. You can probably come up with, there's probably more complicated rules somewhere, but those are kind of the basic stuff. Naming is one of the most important things in computing and one of the hardest. But we tend to not cover it because it's very hard to. It's a lot more philosophy than computer science. What is a good name for a function? What is a good name for a function that adds two numbers? Should you call it add or sum or add two numbers, right? And all of that stuff becomes a lot of matter of taste, a matter of craft more than science. Does that make sense? But it's gonna be kind of the most important thing you do, because normally once you put a name in there, you have to live with that name forever. And so if it's a confusing name, that confusing name stays there forever. You get stuff like, we'll see later in the Java libraries, some things are length, some things are size, right? And for no particular reason, why couldn't they have chosen the same, all of that kind of stuff. But so, let's talk about the program. Your program normally involves getting some inputs, processing it, and producing outputs. For our simple stuff, the input is going to come from the keyboard, from somebody typing or something like that, and the output is going to go to the screen, right? But you could have other kinds of inputs and other kinds of outputs. What other kinds of inputs and outputs could you have?
Other than program?
Sorry?
Besides program?
Besides somebody typing in the program. In general, for programs, right? What other kinds of inputs do you have?
I didn't get
Besides somebody typing on the keyboard, what other kinds of inputs could a program have? When you open a program, right? What input devices do you use? What do you use to give it input?
Scanner.
Sorry?
Scanner.
Scanner, you could have a scanner, and could read from a scanner.
yes.
From where else? If you open a Word, right? What programs are you familiar with? Word?
Yeah.
Word.
You open Word, right? Where could it get data from? Sorry?
From a book.
From the book? Does Word get data from a book? Keyboard. The keyboard, yes. Where else?
Okay. No.
Mouse. And Sorry?
Microphone.
Microphone.
Pen.
Pen. Right? What else?
You can add pictures.
Where are the pictures coming from?
Camera.
The camera or what else?
Flash.
Yes, storage, right? Your hard drive, files, right?
Yeah.
Those things are also inputs, right? And actually, sometimes you can get a template or something from the network, right? So the network is also a device that we can communicate with, right? What kinds of things do we write to? You can write to the screen, right? Making good pictures on the screen. What else?
Downloading app.
Downloading an app, where does it get written to?
Monitor.
To your hard drive, right?
Yes,
To
your hard
your
drive.
storage, right? So you can write stuff to the storage.
You're talking
So
about
the-
Word?
Word,
Oh, okay.
when you save, or when you download a program, right? What program are you using to download? When you download an app? What program did you use to download?
To download the program.
She just said download an app, right? What did you have in mind? It's whatever answer you have.
App
is
Store.
the App Store. Okay, that's cool, right? On your phone, if you have an App Store, probably the iPhone App Store, the Apple App Store. Okay, right? And use that thing to download an app. What happens to that app? Where did that program read and write? Where does the App Store read and write?
C drive.
Well, it's a phone, so it doesn't have a C drive,
Oh,
right? It's an
okay.
iPhone. But it still has a hard drive, right?
Hard
And it
drive,
stores
yeah.
it there. It's a flash thingy. But, right, it's non-volatile memory, right? Permanent storage. It gets written to your hard drive, right?
Yeah.
Where else does that App Store got data?
Internet also.
Memory.
It got data from the internet, that's what you downloaded it, right? From somewhere over the network. And it wrote data to that other place over the network, right? Because when next time you go to the App Store knows that you have bought that app or not, right? So network and files are also input and output, places where we could get input and output, right? Then we have a bunch of other devices like, especially in computers, microphones and scanners and things like that. On your phone, right, you have a microphone usually embedded in it and a camera, and some of them have a fingerprint reader and those kinds of things, right? So our simple programs read from the keyboard, write to the screen, but in general they could be reading or writing from a bunch of different places, right? Most of the time you want to process that input, right? And as part of this process, you want to save kind of temporary things, right? Those are the variables for the most part, right? I'm gonna do things, store whatever I'm doing in a variable, and eventually print it to the screen, right? Or that, do some other kind of output. I don't do Hello World. I do a slightly more complicated version than Hello World. Here's kind of a first full program. We have a main method, and we declare a variable of type scanner, right? We assign it a value, and we'll see what this magic does. Then we call system.out.println, which is a way of printing stuff, right? We print to the screen. What are we printing? Please enter your name. We call a method on the scanner class. We call input.nextLine, right? And that reads a line from the keyboard and returns it, right? So I create a new variable called name and assign it the value of whatever the user entered, right? Does that make sense? And then I'm printing system.out.println hello with a space plus name, right? And what does this plus do?
Adds to name.
That's the
Adds or concatenates the two strings, right? Plus is an operator on strings, and it adds the two strings.
Okay. So string is not a variable.
String is not a variable. String is a data type.
Okay, data type. Oh.
String is a kind of stuff that you can store.
Okay, data type. Okay.
Data type.
Name is a variable.
Name is a
We
variable.
have defined it by writing input dot next line.
We are defining the variable name, and we are assigning it as its value input dot next line.
Input dot next line is another kind of like function.
It's like a function. It's a method, right? It's a method that we are calling on the input variable.
Okay, so what does it do exactly like?
It
Well, like how we come to know that we want to use this input dot next line?
you Google stuff. You learn Java. It's the Java standard library, right? You need to figure out, right? Now you can know what to Google and how to Google by the fact that this variable named input, right? What's its data type?
Is to input something like to write something.
No. What's its data type? Go look at where we defined it. What's its data type? Scanner, right? What's the full name of that class? No. The full name of the class.
hello.
No, the scanner class.
New scanner.
Scanner import.
Java.util.scanner. That's what import does, right? Import just says, sorry, I didn't repeat it this time, right? I think we had covered it, but import says, okay, when you see the short name, when you see scanner, I really mean java.util.scanner. So when you say Joe, I really mean Joe Lopez, who lives in Drury Lane. Does that make sense?
Did you import it from somewhere?
I'm importing it from the standard Java library, right?
How can we do it?
What do you mean?
How can we do it in the IntelliJ? How can
You
we
type import java.util.scanner?
just right before the public class?
Yes. Did I answer your question? You're asking something else. You just don't know how to ask, right? No? You're good?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can learn by the class.
Okay.
During the class.
And so, if you need to Google this, what do you do? Well, this is what I need to Google, right? The documentation tends to be fairly nice. The only horrible thing is that for some reason they still redirect to Java 7 instead of Java 8. Chances are there isn't that much difference, but I like to use the latest thing. Tells you some examples. And then it tells you the methods that you have. These are the data types the methods return, right? And so if you want to do next line, not this one, this one. What does it do? What does it return? A string, and what does it do? So it returns the string that was read. Does that make sense? This method you would know, because we're going to use it forever. But right? That's how you go. That's how you go find it out. Because yes, there is 500 things, and I will always mention what the method does when we cover it, right? But since we are probably gonna see a couple hundred overall, right? You're not gonna remember them. That's why you link stuff. Okay, you Google stuff. I worked at Microsoft, so I still Bing stuff rather than Google it. Does that make sense? So what does this do? The import line, right? Imports the scanner class. It is just a way of using scanner instead of java.util.scanner. Does that make sense? Actually, let me do this. Let's go put it in here, right? I can't do that because I have certs and stuff. So I can do new Java class. I'm gonna call it hello. Can I do no run configurations or something like that, right?
Good.
Edit configurations. Isn't this horrible? You have to say what's your main class. So now it's good. Oh, here I could calling it main, but it actually runs hello, which is not the nicest thing to do, but oh well. It's going, it's running. Please enter your name. Isn't this cool? Did you get the dad joke? Now, what if I don't like to do this? What's gonna happen?
It will stop.
When I compile it, right, it's not gonna know what scanner is, right? So it's gonna complain about it, right? How can I tell it? Well, one thing that I can do is use the full name. Right? If I do the full name, then it works perfectly okay. Yeah. Does that idea make sense? What does import do? Means that I don't have to write the full name. I can use a nickname. Does that idea make sense? Yes, no, maybe, sorta, kinda, yes.
For every scan, you need to type the whole thing.
Wait, if I want to use this short name of somebody, right? That class, its full name is java.util.stat. That's the actual name of the class, right? Just like my full name is Orlando Alfredo Ferran, right? Listening. That's my full name, right? That's the full name of the class. If you want to be able to refer to the class by just the short part of the name, right? If you want to talk to me and refer to me as Orlando, right? You need to establish the context because it may be Orlando Bloom, right? I'm Hans from birthday. Does that make sense? So this is the same thing. Here you're saying whenever, hey, Java compiler, when you see scanner, what I really mean is java.util.scanner, which is the full name of the class. Just so you don't have to type java.util.scanner all the time. Does that idea make sense? What if you want to type java.util.scanner? Type java.util.scanner is perfectly okay. in a case like this, it's about the same, right? But when you are using it all over, then it definitely makes sense to not type the whole thing. Does that idea make sense? You know what import does? Yes? Cool. Now, this is magic, right? Let me explain a little bit how the magic works. We'll still leave it at the level of magic. We will talk a lot more about what is this? What the heck does that mean, right? Well, there's a couple of pieces of magic. One, Java automatically includes all the java.lang. Whatever, right? So Java does import java.lang.star. That means import everything in the java.lang namespace. Does that make sense? Among those, it imports java.lang.system. It is a class. It has a couple of static variables that we want to use. It has a variable called in. That's gonna be horrible. Maybe out would be easier. Yes. Has 3 fields, right? Air, in, and out. And they are actually streams. There is print streams, which are for output, and input streams, which are for input. You don't really need to know this because we are going to cheat. Java has this problem that it's been very successful, but it is by now reasonably old. Java was defined in the early 90s. Didn't become popular until like 95, right? So Java is now 21 years old. Almost as old as a couple of you, right? So it has a bunch of layers. It defined these streams and then these stream classes, and then at some point in time somebody said this stuff is just too ugly to use, and they came up with the scanner class for input. So we will use this scanner class for input. In order to create an instance of this scanner class, you have to tell it where to read from. And we tell it to read from system.in, which is the nominal keyboard. Does that make sense? Same thing with this guy. System.out, right? It's a field of the system class, right? That's a print stream, and so it has the print line method. Does this make some sense?
System in has a method as well.
Sorry?
System in.
Has a bunch of methods, but we don't use them ever. We just pass it to the scanner class, and we use the scanner's methods, not the system.in. It does have an older Java programs used to have that kind of stuff, but it's horribly useless unless you build stuff on top of it. So there's actually even one more layer that we kind of skipped. You have readers and writers, and then they came up with this kind of class, which is a lot more user friendly. Does this make sense? So, now, it is bad manners. Actually, let me do one more thing. I was creating stuff. where is my stuff? Where is this stuff actually? Documents, projects, class, OCRM, okay. Documents, projects. I have this hello.java thing, right? I'm not torturing you with this, but how can we compile a Java program? Yes, what's the name of the Java compiler? Java-C, right? I think we have done it a couple of times, but I can compile this guy, right? And then I can run it with Java hello, right? Does this make sense? And it read from the keyboard, right? And it wrote to the screen, to the console, right? I can actually redirect input and output, right? So I could say Java hello greater than, or redirect to out.txt. I don't see what it wrote, right? But now if I see that file, it had please enter your name and hello Orlando. It redirected the output to a different place. So I didn't see it on the screen. Does that make sense? I can also create a file that has that thing, and so I could run it instead of redirect the output, redirect the input, and so it read from that file instead of from the screen, from the keyboard. Does that make sense? Basically, we came up with this idea of, ooh, why don't we fool the program and make it think that it's reading from the keyboard, and then we can make it read from wherever the heck we want, right? So your programs really have standard input, standard output, and standard error, not necessarily the keyboard and the screen, but we'll keep calling it the keyboard and the screen. Does that idea make sense? This is generic, it has nothing to do with Java. It works in almost every programming operating system known to mankind, because C has them and everybody has been copying C since forever. Does this idea make sense? Cool. So now we can go doing stuff with defining functions, right? I could define a function that does this, right? And then call it here. Right? This is okay. It would work the exact same way. It is slightly ugly. Why is this function slightly ugly? It's not really a function, right? It's not getting any inputs, it's not producing any outputs. It's just modifying the global state, right? When I call that function, I don't know what's going on, right? It just goes and modifies stuff under, right? Sneakily modifies the screen. Does that make sense? That would eventually end up confusing us, right? What can we do to make it less sneaky? I can pass it a parameter. What was system.out and system.in? It's an it's a print stream. I'm now passing a parameter. I'm calling it out. Oops. It's telling me to do this. Import the class. Woohoo! Your IDE will do different things where it, right, lets you import the class. So now I am passing explicitly a variable of type print stream, right? What's the name of that variable? Of that parameter, sorry. Out, right? And that's what I'm using here. So in here, I need to pass it explicitly again, right? This is more complicated but better because now I'm modifying my arguments. I'm still slightly mean, but at least you know that I'm modifying the stuff that you gave me, as opposed to something that we didn't even talk about. Does that idea make sense? Yes? Cool. See, what did I do here? Okay. We can define a function, say hi, that would do this, right? And again, we are defining our print stream output, right? Our print stream calling it out. So here I just do say hi. I pass it a string, the name, and system.out. Does that make sense? I could, rather than ask to print name, right? I called it here get name from user. This is a function that returns a string. It takes two parameters, a print stream and a scanner. It prints, please enter your name to that print stream, and then it returns in the next line, which is a string. Does that make sense? What did we modify in this function? We modified the state both of out and of in. Does that make sense? Because the print line method and the next line method modify their own things. Right? But this enables us to do this.
Can we do the return type of the function as print string?
You can. You can, but then you would need to be returning a print string, not a string. Right? If that's what you're returning, then yes. Right? Does this make sense? More complicated, more code. arguably prettier.
In the previous classes, we were typing on the top one, right? Like in the hello world,
Yeah.
and you're typing on the bottom one. What's the difference?
This stuff, right, and this has nothing to do with Java, this is my IDE, right? This is my program that I'm typing. This is the program that is actually running.
Yeah, even in the assignment, we were working with the top one, right?
Yes, because you were never, for the assignments, normally you don't run the assignment classes, you run the test cases, right? So you were never doing this stuff.
Yeah, like in also hello world, we were typing on the top, right? Like hello.
You only type on the top. Right? Your program, you only type it here. This is a file, has a file name, right? This is when you're running the program and you're giving inputs to that program. This is the equivalent of this guy.
The bottom one?
The equivalent of running this. In fact, it is exactly that.
So bottom one runs the program, right?
It's where when the program is running, that's where it will appear, right? And if by default on the bottom, you can move it around. IDEs are complicated beasts. You can move them, maybe. You can make them bigger, definitely. Is that how I move them? Oh, disappeared. It isn't there anymore, right? When I do this, it will appear again. Oh, and one of these things would allow me to move it. Oh, it's pinned and docked, right? I can make it float. So it's not at the bottom. Does that make sense? It's a different window in your IDE. Your IDE is going to have different windows. Actually, Eclipse puts it on a different place and it looks different, right? So be aware, play with your IDE. Any questions on this stuff? Assignment 2 basically requires you to go do these kinds of things, right? You are given a bunch of functions, you are passed a print stream or a stream or a scanner or both, and you do things with them. Super simple stuff.
For you.
No, for you, it will be super simple. It will be super simple for you. Politicians promise.
Can you go through the logic of it? It's like how the Java is like starting from like a main.
Okay.
It's like
Java always, right, starts from some main, right? When you start a Java program, you tell it what's the main class, right? Then it goes, looks at the main method, right? And executes it. That's all it's gonna execute. In this case, what's this first line doing? We create a new variable. What's the name of that variable? Input. What's its type? Scanner. What's its value? What value are we putting in there? A new scanner, right, from system.in. Does that make sense? We haven't really talked much about new. New is how you create objects. In Java, everything's an object, except primitives. So that's how you create objects, right? With the new operator. What does this do? I am defining a variable called what? Name. Right? What type is that variable? String. And what value am I putting in there? Whatever getName from user returns. Does that make sense?
So it's going to return as system output and input.
No, it's going to return a string. It takes a system.output and a scanner, right? It takes a print string and a scanner, and I'm deciding to pass it system.out and input, right? And two values. And it returns a string. Right? Just a black box that takes two things, does stuff, and returns a string. Right? What's the stuff that it does? If we go look at the code for getName from user, right? What does it do? It calls the printLine method on the out variable that it got, right? And then it calls the nextLine method on the in variable, right? And returns whatever that nextLine thing returns. Does that make sense? We know that printLine, when called on a print stream, will write a bunch of bytes to the string, right? To the stream, sorry. And so, since that system.out, we're going to end up writing a bunch of bytes to this string, right? To the standard output. And we know that nextLine, when called on a scanner, will read from the input stream until it finds a new line delimiter, and then return those bytes. So it reads a line from the key. Does this make sense? No, maybe. Kind of. How are you going to make it make more sense? Go do 20,000 examples, right? Now go read other stuff. How about what does this do? What does it do?
I plus name.
Sorry? The whole thing that it does.
Print your name twice.
It asks for two names,
Yes,
right? And it prints hello, one for each one of those names, right? I probably misspelled names, but hey.
No.
No? Cool. Donnie, is that how you write it? Cool. Does this make sense?
Where did you get the hello from?
This guy, say hi, right? What say hi does is prints hello and the name.
Yeah, okay.
name1 and name2 is calling the get name from user method twice.
The line, right? Name1 is a variable. The line where I assign it to, right? I call get name from user, and I assign that value to name1. And then I call get name from user again, and I assign that value to name2. Does this make sense? Now, imagine that we have say hi to both. We're going to say something like, hello, so and so, right? Hello, Dolomia and Dealer Fruits, something like that. And now, we can nominate a volunteer to come write that code. You have been nominated as a volunteer. You have been volunteered. Come do it.
It's mandatory.
It's okay. Yes, you have been volunteered.
Before you add the string name too, it works. It give an answer hello Denafus and hello Dummy.
Yes, because I called the method above, say hi. I called that method twice.
So can we write both names in the same line?
What I want is to write both names in the same line.
So how do you
It's
say
not
that?
gonna be print line. It's gonna be
Well,
print.
I could do two things, right? One is I could use print first and then print line. But I
Yeah.
could also call print line and just build a string with more pluses, right?
Oh, okay.
So what would it look like? Yes, come do it. Go do it. Go type. It's okay. It's perfectly okay to not know.
So here it's gonna be name1, name2.
Yeah.
Name1, and then it's gonna be
Double quotes. Or yeah. Yes, and delete that slash before it's gonna complain.
Delete this.
Yes. Yes.
I want to make a space.
Get inside the quotes
Okay.
and now press space. Space? No.
No? Okay.
Delete that. Just space.
Okay.
Yeah. Inside the quotes you can
And
do.
then this one, and then name2,
Yeah.
and here.
That's perfect. And now in there, instead of
String name. So for this one, it could be
Yeah.
this right,
yeah,
like this.
those two lines are okay. Yeah. Instead of say hi,
And
Right.
say hi.
Say hi
Let me
to both.
see. So
Will
this
you come and say hi to both?
name
two.
2.
Yeah.
And
Come
then,
on. Now, yeah, you need to change the name. Instead of say hi, you say hi to both.
yeah. So
To
this-
both. Apple C and Apple V. If you double click, it will select the whole.
okay.
Cool.
That's it?
Yes. Now click and run it. You deserve it. You earned it. Yes. And now you have to click down there. No, no.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yay! Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. This is cool, right?
Yes.
Now go do 700 others, right? Ask for other stuff. Combine it in different ways. Make it print, right?
In the Eclipse?
In Eclipse, in IntelliJ, in whatever, right? Just you need to play, right? You need to go play until these things become instead of horrible and mysterious, they become obvious because now you have done 700 of this. Yeah, right? It's like, yeah, I know exactly what happened. I've done it 10 times, right? You need to do deliberate practice. You need to do this a million times, right? Now let's look at a couple other methods from the scanner class. We can actually get, we can do next line, as we have done. We can do next int and next double. And those will read the characters, convert it to an integer, and give it to us. Right? So when somebody enters the digits 1, 2, and 3, it will return the number 123. Does that make sense? So let me delete this for now. Sorry, destroying your masterpiece. Let's change this into something that gets the age. Right? What kind of data type would age be? An int, right? At least in a simplified version, right? How would we change it? Well, instead of this, or actually, and instead of next line, what do we return? Does that make sense? Right? The IDE was still looking at the old version and was complaining. So now I could do and then why is that complaining? Have name, right? Oh, I need to pass a print stream. Yes. Let's create a new function. And let's see. We're always 21 in our hearts. Slightly less than half. It's not that bad. Does that make sense? We can read next int, right? We can read next double. And we can do stuff with those things, right? We could read two things and print values, right? Or right? We could get ages from two different people and say you're older or younger, right? Those kinds of things. Does this idea make sense? Is this cool or what? Any questions about this? How to write full programs, right? What happens to all these functions? We have say hi to both, right? Did it ever get executed? No, why not? Because in main, I didn't call it, right? And so you're there just as a backup. You are in the reserves, right? You are a bench warmer. Does that make sense? It only gets called when somebody calls it in main, right? Here I'm calling it, and so the function actually gets executed, right? How many times can a function get executed? As many times, right? Depends on how many times you call it, right? That's the point of a function, right? Does that make sense? Isn't this cool? Cool. Shall we? We have covered everything in this lesson, which is good. I don't know if we should. Yeah, this has relatively little material. Isn't this cool? But on the other hand, the material is somewhat complicated, right? We have covered a bunch of extra stuff that still probably won't quite stick, right? We have covered we have covered how to call methods with the dot operator, right? We will go over those things in much more detail in a couple more weeks. Let me, for now, prime your brain with, unless you have any questions. No questions, right? Yeah? Cool. Let me prime your brain with next week's material. Right?
We are going to meet one more
Sorry?
day. We're going to meet one more day.
We're going to meet one more day, yes. It's just that you guys are uber smart, so we go fast.
I'm not.
You are! Either smart or shy, right? Because if you don't ask questions, then I'm assuming that you're getting it and I keep going.
It seems like I need to practice.
Yes!
To ask more questions. So until I practice, I won't get everything to say.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Practice. Let me mention. Yeah. Let's start doing slightly more interesting programs. The next thing we are going to cover, and next class, don't worry, we'll go over this stuff again and do more examples and play more with this. But we have a yeah. Imagine that we want a function to say something whether somebody is above drinking age or not, right? With what we have covered, right, we cannot do that, right? There is one piece of magic that we'll spend next week doing tons of examples on, which is the if statement, or conditionals in general. You can write an if statement, then a condition, which is just an expression that returns a Boolean value. What's a Boolean value? Yes or no, true or false, right? So, in the US, what's the drinking age? Well, the alcohol drinking age, 21, right? So, if that age that we got, right, is greater than or equal to 21, this piece is going to be executed. If not, this piece is going to be executed. The parentheses are part of the syntax. The braces are not, but if you don't, then only one statement gets done. 99.9% of the time, you wanted to put the braces there. So it's a very good idea to put them and think of them as part of the syntax. The else clause is not required. If you don't put an else clause, then nothing happens if the condition wasn't true. Does that make sense?
If else is not there, then it automatically takes it as else.
As else, do nothing.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
And then it will continue and do whatever else happens to be here, right? So in here, what could we do to tell whether they are above drinking age or not? What method could we call? Print line or print on which variable, which parameter? Out, right? The print stream that we got, right? This guy. Keep in mind that though we are using the same names all over, right, it's a completely different variable each time, right? It's not a variable, it's actually a parameter. It's a cheating way. It's a pseudo variable, right? That will get mapped when we call it. So here we'll do out dot print line, right? Right? Actually, it's amazing how we get to like those things, right? Beer is definitely, absolutely an acquired taste. So now we could do thinking about it. Why aren't you running, thingy? All files are up to date. Yeah, that's cool. Run them.
You shouldn't give it a number.
This is driving me nuts, but that's not it. I'm telling you to run the hello class. What number? What happened to this guy? Run hello.
You put a number instead of page. And call it.
And I could, but that's right. It's not even. It's interpreting this as compiling, not as running. Parsing, finish saving, and then it doesn't run. Compilation completed successfully. Yes, but why don't you run it? Okay. For now, let me do this. Yeah. No dot. Does this make sense? Now, if statements allow us to do fancier stuff, prettier stuff, right? I will eventually figure out how to use IDEs. Any questions? No? And I think we shall call it a day. I don't think I'm done grading everybody. I graded everybody up to yesterday night, but not after, right? I think almost everybody in this class submitted. I think there was one person who didn't, and I'm gonna be talking to them, but